Welcome to the Austin Business News Podcast. I'm Tina Cannon, your host and CEO of the Chamber. On today's pod, we're got a special interview for you today with Sergeant Crumrine of the Austin Police Department. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, so I'm very excited that Amy and I get to have this amazing conversation. Are you looking forward to it, Amy?
I am looking forward to it.
It's going to be a good one. And I'm going to kick it off with a story about how I met our guest, Sergeant Michael Wilmore Crumrine. It's a pretty cool story because last May 2024, I had the opportunity to go give a speaking engagement at NATO, which was really exciting. And I stayed in Brussels for the week to go walk in the Pride Parade with the NATO contingent. So I'm standing on the street, you know, having a little cocktail, chatting with everybody, waiting to walk in the parade. And one of the people from NATO comes running up to me and goes, oh my God, Fiona, I just met this guy from Austin. He's from Austin, Texas. I'm like, what? How on earth is there somebody from Austin, Texas, where I live, also here at Pride? And then he goes, yeah, he's gay and he's a cop. I'm like, what?
In Brussels places, yeah.
In Brussels. So before I know it, I meet Michael, who is an amazing human and has become a really good friend. And I just immediately knew that I needed to know this guy. But the next level of it then was like, not only is he a gay man, a police officer in Austin, Texas, but he's on the board of the Lesbian and Gay Peace Officers Association, organizing an international conference. I'm going to say one more thing and then I'm going to hand it over to Michael. But basically, I learned that day that he was among a group of committee members who are organizing an international conference on peace officers, including police people in Austin, Texas,
right.
You know, in our beautiful state where everything is so hunky-dory. And I just thought that was an incredible story. So I was hoping to do a documentary on it, but that's not yet happening. But it could still happen. But Michael, what do you reckon? What was your experience of that day?
So you've captured that very, very well, Fiona, and I appreciate it. But it was certainly serendipitous that we ended up, of all places, to meet. So I happened to have been in Brussels for the European Gay Police Association conference and was the opportunity to talk to several of my different colleagues from around the world to talk about the conference that we're hosting, which is the Fourth World LGBTQI conference for criminal justice professionals. So I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute, but I certainly was gobsmacked a little bit when I was told there's somebody from Austin, Texas,
That's wild, isn't it?
all the way on the other side of the world. And so we had an opportunity to chit chat and talk and got to know each other. We both marched in Pride that day, which was an amazing parade in Belgium. And ever since then, we've stayed connected. So the whole reason I was over there, and then kind of what we wanted to talk today about in this conference in this podcast is talking about the conference. Yeah. And so this conference is incredibly unique. It's a professional development conference. A lot of industries have them, right? Doctors, lawyers, engineers, so on and so forth. We have them in law enforcement, and we have them in criminal justice. There's, prosecutors and attorneys and everything that meet. But what is really unique is there's no other international conference for queer identifying criminal justice professionals. And, when people hear the term criminal justice, a lot of people are like, oh, that's a bunch of cops. Well, yeah, cops are part of that system, but so are prosecutors, so are defense attorneys, so are educators, so are advocates, so are probation, parole individuals.
Military too, right? Service members.
There's a variety of folks that are part of this monstrosity that we have in the world called criminal justice. So what's super unique is this conference never happens anywhere else. It only happens about once every 3 to 4 years in different countries around the world. And it's never come to the United States before. So that's super cool. And of all the places for it to come, it came to Austin, Texas, this little blue dot in this big sea of red.
Yeah.
And so super, super excited about that. Kind of how it came here. I could kind of get into that, but we are a week away.
Yeah.
We're recording this now. In 1 week from tomorrow is kickoff. lift off, start of, whichever term you
Yeah.
wish to use. So super excited. 2 years in the making, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of challenges left and right. But man, the city of Austin stayed the course. The Austin Police Department stayed the course. The organization that I'm the president of, which you had spoken about, the Lesbian Gay Peace Officers Association, we all hung tight. So super excited that there's going to be a little over 200 delegates coming from over 12 different countries.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'll be represented here.
Tell us the date, tell us the theme, and then I really want to move into Amy's perspective of the theme of the conference and have a deep discussion on that. So what date is it kicking off? What's the theme?
The full conference kicks off on August 6th, Wednesday the 6th, then goes through the 8th. So 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
There's a welcome reception we'll have on the 5th. And the theme of the conference is Bridging the Gap. So it is very intentional on the name of the conference. It's very intentional on the goal of the conference moving forward, which I guess we'll sit here and chat about here in a little bit about those specifics. But it's what can we learn from each other from all over the world to improve the relationship between the criminal justice system and the queer community on not only a global scale, but a national scale, a state scale, and then naturally, a local scale that we have here in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it's we met in 2018, you and I. Yeah. I was married to someone from APD.
Mm-hmm.
And coming into that marriage, I had my opinions on law enforcement. And
what was that?
Well, I had to warn my ex-wife. I was like, listen, when she finally shared her profession, I was like, you gotta understand, I've made signs for Black Lives Matter walks. I'm kind of coming from the other side. However, especially in Austin, and it's fascinating that you're having the conference now, like after politically, socially, everything going on in our country. I can imagine that there are people across the globe who are like, we're going where? We're going to the heart of it all in Texas. But I learned so much about what good law enforcement looks like. And I think Austin for decades was an example of how there can be even, dare I say, DE&I efforts within a department. And I just thought it was fascinating. The more that I learned about what was going on at the academy with education and continuing education and like reaching out to the community and what's the position where like each community has like a liaison?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So that is part of our district rep program.
Yeah.
And each, basically they're community police officers broken up throughout the city.
Right. It's just, I didn't experience that growing up in Houston. If there is programming like that in Houston, I was unaware of it. And I think I had a behind the curtains view, being married to an officer, that you really don't know what the efforts are if you don't have that personal connection. And I think the theme of this conference, Bridging the Gap, and hopefully a lot of the community, the broader community who don't have a loved one in law enforcement, who don't know somebody in law enforcement or even criminal justice. If you don't have that lean in, like that's all, it's just it was a fascinating ride for me. And so when I learned about the conference, y'all went to Sydney, right?
We did.
Yeah.
Well, Melbourne, actually, Australia, but
Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Oh, perfect.
Melbourne.
That's where I used to live. And I saw the pictures come back with Henderson and you. And God, it was just like, man, these are all folks that are working towards keeping the community safe. And they just happen to have that intersectionality of being queer.
Right.
And there's a whole huge community across the globe.
Right.
That
Absolutely.
choose this as a profession. And yeah, it is fascinating.
Right. I want to know, Michael, like here not just in Austin, I mean, in many cities across the United States and indeed across the world, there are LGBTQ plus individuals, queer people and allies who vehemently oppose the presence of police and are very anti-police, say very disparaging things. And then they're even distasteful for queer identifying police officers or security individuals. And so what do you say to them? Like somebody who thinks that being gay and being a police officer is something that is intolerable for them, and that they think that you're that you're leaving the community behind, that you're not being supportive of the queer community.
Well, it's interesting on both sides, right? Because there's some people that feel that if you're queer identified and you work in this field of criminal justice, especially as a police officer, somehow you're abandoning your roots, you're abandoning your community. By the same token, there's plenty of people that are incredibly supportive of law enforcement and incredibly supportive of the criminal justice system, who feel you can't be in those roles and be queer identified, right? So those intersectionalities are really, really challenging, like Amy was saying. And then you also put in the other part of, what if you're a queer person of color that's in law enforcement? Or what if you are a queer person of color who's an immigrant that's in this field, right? It becomes more and more challenging. What I tell everybody is, look, there are queer people everywhere. That's the nature of the business. We're the only community that is representative of every other marginalized community in the world. We have people of color. We have people where English isn't their first language. We have people with disabilities. We have people that have a variety of other different challenges. Like, we're the only, meaning the queer community is the only queer community inclusive of everybody else. And so, to answer back to individuals who think that somehow we are abandoning our culture, or we're abandoning our community, I push back and I say, no, we're trying to make things better. You can either stand somewhere and throw rocks at something, or fail to want to engage something because it's fearful, and I get that. But if we can have people working in that community that has the opportunity for people to educate and get to know what the community is needing, what the community is seeing, and be able to have somebody on the inside helping to bridge those gaps, helping them go ahead and pave those roadways forward, it makes us a better community. I don't feel the same way, and I don't think a lot of other people feel the same way, that somehow we're abandoning who we are. We are built on a country of laws. That's what the United States is, bar none. And so you have to have individuals that have to enforce those laws, and those laws have to be supported and argued in a court of law. I mean, that's the system that's the U.S. To get rid of that system, okay, we can try to have that conversation, but basically you're getting rid of a lot of the main pillars of our community and real pillars of where the U.S. is moving forward. And I just think it's much better to have people that are willing to work within that community. We've been in law enforcement and government.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. Whether we could be out and we could be ourselves and we can be open and we can go ahead and stand proudly and profess who we are. Now those things are relatively new.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good handful of trans identifying cops in Austin as well. And Fiona and I were chatting earlier about leading into this pod, and, I'm not going to get too political, but when it comes to policy, there are legislators who are vehemently back the blue. And then they go and they write policy against the queer community. And I'm like, do you realize this is damaging to some of the finest law enforcement officers that we could ever hope for? And you're basically making their career and their profession difficult.
Right. For example, before you say that, for example, this latest bathroom bill.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What does a trans police officer do if they need to have a quick pee on the job and go back out again? So I'd love to roll that into your answer.
Yeah.
I mean, my answer, and I'll preface this, I am speaking as the president of the Lesbian Gay Peace Officers Association at this moment. I am not speaking as an Austin police officer. I personally think that piece of legislation is petty and it is cruel.
Yeah.
And so many other mannerisms. We are trying to go ahead and demonize some of the hardest working individuals in the world. What people don't understand, and just like you said, AB, there's over 200 trans cops here in the state of Texas.
Wow.
There's an organization called T-Cops that has close to 7,000 members across the world.
Wow.
Right?
It's amazing.
That's
like, when you really want to start putting this in there, like there are trans identified and non-binary identified individuals within all facets of government, not just, and I'm just talking law enforcement, put in fire, EMS, public works, emergency management, military,
public administration, even
correct. So it is small-minded, and I personally would think that the state of Texas would be better than what they currently are right now. So, I mean, that's, again, I preface who I'm speaking as or for as the president of LGPOA, moving forward with that. But these kind of issues, Amy, are also the same type of issues that we want to have an honest conversation about at the conference. I mean, we will have a trans panel because we're going to ask those questions of courageous trans officers and other individuals in the criminal justice field who are willing to stand up in front of others and have an honest, open public conversation about this, about how this affects them personally, how this is going to affect them in their job. You know, I've been a cop a very long time, nearly 40 years. And I can't imagine many, if any, law enforcement officer wants to spend their time trying to figure out who's using what bathroom when I've got robberies, I've got homicides, I've got child abuse, I've got sexual assault, I've got collisions, I've got burglaries, I've got everything else that is so much more of a priority for my time than to be dealing with that.
Yeah. I was curious to know, did you have any resistance from people coming from other countries?
Yeah. Great question. I spent the better part of a couple of months having personal conversations with folks from all over the world. And quite frankly, there are some that are not comfortable coming. And they're not all trans-identified or non-binary. They're just individuals that want to stand in solidarity with others around the world who don't feel like they want to come here. But then I've also had so many other individuals who have said, no, this is the time to be there.
I agree with that.
To have the courage to come and speak, right? It's not time to go ahead and close the door and not show up and not be present. So there's a lot of folks coming from other countries for that very reason.
I love that.
To stand up.
Because it's almost like it's even further siloed to not come to this conference because it's in Texas, because it's in the US, and you're standing in solidarity. And not, people have their beliefs, and I'm not knocking that. And I've definitely been on the other side with other issues as well. But when you're speaking to being queer identified in law enforcement, this is why we're having the conference. That's the whole point of the conference. So to not celebrate your brothers and sisters and siblings of, as we say now, and it's like, and in the law enforcement culture, it's already so close knit. And I got to experience that being with Ashley. Like, very rarely did I see friends outside of law enforcement. So like, when you silo it down to being queer, and now you silo it even further with our social and political issues that are going on in this country, it's a little disheartening, because that's where the advocacy comes in. That's where you have to lean in a little bit harder. But
100%. That when we pitched this conference, I had asked people, and the whole idea of us hosting this started back in 2019. I had the privilege of going to Toronto, which was where the second conference was. And I was talking to the folks that put the conference on, and I'm like, how come this hasn't come to the US before? And they're like, well, Mike, frankly, the US isn't in the same headspace as some other places around the world in regards to how they look at LGBTQ rights as human rights. And we want to go places that were celebrated and it's fun and it's exciting. And I go, man, I appreciate that. But I sat here for a week and I kept hearing about how many of y'all were leaders and how you were leaders in your profession and you were leaders in this and in these roles. If you're truly a leader, you got to go to the difficult places and you have to have challenging conversations, which is what we're going to do. And I think part of the reason of us doing that, I am incredibly proud of the fact that who we have been able to bring together. I mean, the fact that we're partnering with the Human Rights Campaign, the fact that we're partnering with Equality Texas. One of the highlights that I'm super stoked about, and I can't wait till it's all put together. Equality Texas did this amazing queer history in Texas. And it's online. You can go and look at it and everything else. Well, an amazing individual here in Austin by the name of Richard Bondi. He ended up going ahead and having an idea. Why don't we take that and make a static display with it? So the LGPOA is the one that funded it. And so we're taking that and bringing it to life. So you can have an actual static display that everybody can see from around the world. Super happy about that. Miriam has been amazing working with her with Equality Texas and being on board with this, and other members of Equality Texas. And then, Kelly Robinson is going to be one of our keynote speakers, and she's going to be here. I just think that's important. I learned a long time ago, we make a better product as in government when we bring stakeholders together to have honest conversations and we talk and we work collectively towards fixing problems. And so this is what this conference is going to be about, is how do we learn from each other? There are phenomenal people coming in from all over the world that have done great things in Canada, in Belgium, in Australia, in France, right? And to learn from them and have that dialogue and talk, that's interesting, and that's great. And then we have plenty of people from the US there as well. So super excited that we're doing it. But I got to be, I got to be perfectly honest. Like, we understand our history. We understand that we are not perfect. We understand that we can be better and should be better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what society demands of us. We just want to work towards that goal. And we know we'll stumble along the way. We know we won't get everything right. But, I think when each of us is willing to put the effort in and is also willing to give each other grace to try to get through the problems that maybe we're not the best versed at because we just haven't been educated about.
Sure.
Right? I think that's when you can start seeing the change that I think people want to see in their criminal justice system.
How is this conference going to have a positive impact afterwards to that vein?
Great questions. So a couple of things along those lines. There is certain subject matters that haven't been talked about at other conferences. One of them is a discussion panel that we're talking about the intersectionality between race, ethnicity, orientation, identity, and policing, right? How do you come to the United States with our history and not have a conversation about policing and race, right? In that intersectionality. So I'm super excited about the fact that we're going to have a conversation about that. We also have the ability where several chief executives will sit on a discussion panel and be able to field questions from the police, like, or the people that are in the crowd, which is how do you create an environment when you're being tasked with some of these current pieces of legislation to still foster a community environment where people feel that they can trust and respect and want to access you should they be harmed? How do you create an environment within your own agency where somebody looks at that profession and says, I want to go through that. That's what I want to do. We're going to ask those challenging questions. We're going to talk about some of our experiences here in Austin. When I started down this road, man, I thought we were really good. I've realized over the past year or so, no, there's areas that we're still hurting and we need to do better and we're not getting it right. And we want to talk about that. So I think how this translates is also bringing in other people. For instance, the Fraternal Order of Police, which is the largest law enforcement association, ended up advertising our conference in their bulletin, ended up going ahead and putting this out to every one of their members, encouraging them to come. Like, think of that for a minute. Like, this is not just this little thing here in Austin. The Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas is putting it out. TCOPS is putting it out, right? Like, so there's a lot of different folks that are, I should say TMPA is putting it out as well as TCOPS. But I think it translates in us saying, you know what, we're now part of this community and we're part of this profession. And it's important for us to find ways to create safe places for not only our employees, but for the community overall.
Now, are most of these conversations going to be on the record? Are you going to have press there? Is it going to be recorded? So if people can't be in the room, that there's some kind of documentation as to what was said and some kind of action that's going to happen afterwards, rather than a lot of times you go to conferences and people have brilliant ideas and great conversation and then nothing happens. So is the press going to cover this conference? Is the general public, if they can't be there, going to learn about it and be able to start to build a community together afterwards?
So great questions. You mentioned it earlier. We were trying to do a documentary, which would have done exactly that and immortalize
funding,
that.
Please, for the documentary.
Anybody who's hearing this that wants to do it, we can make this happen in the next week. That didn't occur. There will be some press there that do write for criminal justice organizations that will be there. We've done several things here in Austin with KXAN and KVU and a few others, and to put the information out along that way. We wish we had the ability to record things, but it's a cost, as y'all well know, and funding is incredibly tight. We haven't even gone down that road of how the political landscape has changed since January, and that caused lack of some funding and some participation by certain groups that were already kind of committed beforehand. So unfortunately, I don't have that. But I mean, the other thing that we have to realize with this conference is there are people that are attending this conference that are not open and out in their own communities. And as much as where we're at here in the US, and it may be challenging, there are places that people will be coming from that it's even far worse and potentially is harmful to them if that is recorded and gotten back.
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense.
So we have to be sensitive to that as well, and making sure that we keep a safe space for everybody who's coming.
Well, yeah, I kind of shifting a little bit. I'm curious with like the up and coming cadets.
Yeah.
What are you hearing? What's new with the youngsters? And I know that even the age range has changed a little bit with who can come in as a new officer, right? Like it was bumped. It used to be 45 was the cutoff, and I think now that has been removed. So with recruitment and younger cadets coming in, what are you hearing about our queer community and intersectionality? And
well, so we have several queer identified individuals that come out of Austin. PD recruiting actively recruits into the LGBTQ plus community. We will actually have our recruiting team will be at this conference to try to see
poach some people away.
I wasn't going to use that word, but maybe encourage folks that Austin is a little bit better of a venue for them than where they're currently at. So that'll be going on as well. But, when you look at every statistic that's out there, the Gen Z population, 20% or more are identifying somewhere along the queer spectrum. So as professionals in the criminal justice field, you have to market to them. You have to realize that that's our future moving forward. And you can't turn a blind eye to 1/5 of the population just because it doesn't meet whatever your image of what you think a queer or a cop or a prosecutor or defense attorney, any one of them should look like.
Well, I'm going to ask one more question, and then I think we will have to wrap it up, sadly, although I feel like I could talk for a long, long time. What is the best thing about being a gay cop in Austin, Texas?
Man, I came to Austin so that I could be authentically me. And I guess that's the best thing is I can be myself and just exist and breathe and feel like I am welcome and I am loved and I am supported on every level. I mean, my chain of command, all the way up, including, Chief Lisa Davis, Chief of Staff, Robin Henderson, all amazing individuals, incredibly supportive of all of us. So that's a big thing for me. And I've gotten to a point now where, people can't see this with the podcast, but I'm 6'1" and I'm 250 pounds and I'm bald and
white
and white. Yeah. All of those things. So I understand that I have a lot of privilege, but I enjoy just being myself and being able to wear a pride pin. I wear it every single day. And I don't know how many people just that little gesture changes their opinion.
Oh yeah, big time.
Of what a cop could be or should be or whichever the case may be. So the greatest thing is I could just be myself. I mean, I got an amazing husband. We've got a wonderful home. I have a brilliant daughter who's all grown now, although I don't think your kids are ever really fully grown and never still rely on your parents from time to time. I'm happy and I'm content and I'm loved and supported, and man, that's just a great feeling. The best way to, I guess, describe that is I can breathe, and that's important.
And those are the things I think we all hope for ourselves and everybody else.
Yeah.
All here and across the world.
I think you're going to have some attendees at this conference that are going to be pleasantly surprised with what our community looks like here in Austin. Yeah. They're going to be, I think they're in for a shock of how cool we are out here. So
where can our listener find out about the conference? Can they attend the conference?
So you can go to www.together.org, which is the conference website. You can register if you work within the criminal justice system or tied to the criminal justice system in any manner. You can attend. It is not open to everybody in the public for some of the reasons we've talked about earlier, but if you're tied through education, through advocacy, through either being a prosecutor or a defense attorney or in law enforcement or any of those things, by all means, you can come and attend. We'd love to have you. have you experienced this? Experience Austin, experience some great food that'll be here as well through a couple of different things, and just get a sense of the vibe that is the city we have all fallen in love with and treasure.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Michael, for being here. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the work you do. We appreciate you, and thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.